Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. Today we have live session with Anshika Varma, a very great photographer and a great inspiring person. Let's wait for her to come. So I don't know why it's happening like this today. So let me join. It's really sad, I don't know what's happening.
Sorry, my screen always goes to the wall that's in front of me.
You're looking like better. Your video is better now.
Oh, so maybe there was
No,
some
no,
error.
but these comments, come in downside. I don't know why it is coming like this.
Yeah, now I can see. I can see
You
Raj
can
has
see?
joined in again. Yeah.
Yeah?
So I think we're on track now.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Jim, for joining me again. Anshika, it's a pleasure to have you. I was waiting for this session since a long time. So I want to
Me
tell
too.
everyone
I've been
how
waiting to speak with you as well.
I met Anshika. That was very interesting. So
Yes.
in last November, we had a panel discussion with a German company, and they invited me as a woman photographer because I am a founder of Hardcore Street Collective. So that time I didn't know Anshika, who is Anshika. So that was the first time I met her, and she was a great speaker, and she spoke very nicely, and I found her very interesting. And I got to know that she's doing some great work, and we had a great panel discussion, and it was a great time with various women photographers talking about women photography, you know, in India,
Actually, it
how
was
they are.
really nice, Shweta, to even know about the work. I mean, just for those of you who might be joining in later, Shweta and I spoke last year. There was a very interesting panel discussion about how street photography might be changing and what's happening with women's street photography collectives and women's street photography. Um, it was a very, very interesting conversation because I think our our understanding of street photography today has also changed so much, and we spoke so much about that. And so it was really good to know about the work that you're doing with your Instagram page and encouraging so many women street photographers to kind of step up and get out there and hopefully we will have some books about women street photographers coming out soon enough from
They're
Shweta.
already coming. They're already coming,
They're
and
already coming. Yes, perfect.
no, there is this publisher, Peanut
You
Publishing,
mentioned.
Peanut Publishers,
Yeah.
who are just focusing on women photographer.
Mm-hmm.
They are very interesting people. Like they are couple, and they are doing this. So they published 10 women photographers books. Can you imagine?
That's quite
Last
good,
year,
yeah.
last year. So I'm really amazed, and they followed me back. So I hope. Let's see. Hope for the
Something
best.
works out. We'll keep our fingers crossed on that.
So tell me, Anshika, about yourself. Something about your childhood days. Where were you born, and how was your journey started? And as a photographer, tell us about yourself.
Actually, I live in Delhi. I have always lived in Delhi, and I come from I mean, I think the only migration or movement that has probably happened within my family was my great grandfather and my grandfather when he was really young. They crossed over from Pakistan during the partition, and at that time we got into Delhi and we lived in this. I mean, my family still lives there in this area called Rajendra Nagar, which initially settled as a refugee colony for people who crossed over from the partition. And it was really nice to grow up in a neighborhood like that because I think there was this feeling of like the entire neighborhood being one family, and people have known each other for decades. People have known families, and people have grown into larger families over there. So I've kind of spent my entire childhood here, and only very recently have I shifted base, but I'm still very much in Delhi, and I'm now living with my partner, so who's also a photographer. So that's kind of where I'm from, I guess, in some ways. And I think it's how photography happened. It's actually really funny because I never thought I would get into photography. I always wanted to be a writer. In fact, when I was very young, I was probably like in junior school or something, and people would ask me, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I used to tell them that I want to write stories. So I always thought that I'm going to write stories, and I'll make books out of writing these stories of my own. But
And you are
I'm
doing
still
that.
writing stories, right? And I'm still thinking about books, but I think the language has expanded a little bit more. And and photography came to me actually very late, I guess, in some ways, because down the line, going from writing, I got really inspired by movement and dance. So I was actually training to be a contemporary dancer,
Wow, interesting.
and it was really fun, like just to, I think, be able to do something with your body, like where your body is actively involved in doing something, was really nice. And so I kind of, I picked up on dance. I was training with a troupe over here. And when I was in university, I had a pretty bad car accident.
Oh, really?
And I mean, in the sense that I was walking, there was a car that kind of slammed me right outside my university. It wasn't that bad. There's another. I've had two, three very critical accidents that have actually, that are really funny if you think about it in retrospect. But one of the things that emerged from that was that I had actually developed an injury in my knee and in my lower back. So at that time, the doctors had kind of told me, I think you should think about like other avenues apart from dance, because at this age, it's going to be really difficult to kind of shift that around. And I, so then I said, okay, I studied literature already, and I decided to go to Bombay to study communication. And uh, and I was really interested in journalism even at that time. I still thought I would write, and I was really focused on the journalism part of it. But I met this really amazing photographer towards the end of my course, Chirodeep Chaudhary. I
When
don't know
was
if
this?
you.
Which year?
Sorry?
Which year was this?
This was 2007, 2008, I think.
Long time back. I know.
Yeah.
I know Chinodeep. I met him.
You know Chiro. Okay, perfect. So I met Chiro, and Chiro was like our guest professor over there. And I said,
Wow.
hey, this stuff looks really fun. And yeah, and I just dove right in and obsessively walked the streets with my camera for a fairly long time. And I started with work in journalism. I still do some work within that, but like these are more freelance gigs for certain publications. So yeah, that kind of happened. But I think down the line, somewhere I wasn't really satisfied with what journalism could allow me to create,
Why?
because
Why?
I felt like you always need like an incident or something provocative. And I realized that I wanted to actually make more quiet imagery. And I think today the scenes changed a fair bit, but at that time there was very little opportunity to do work like that. And and at that time, like agendas of different publications was also kind of really coming to the forefront. I don't think any publication has existed without an agenda ever. So I mean I can't say that pehle nahi tha aur ab ho gaya hai. There were always agendas, but I think I just didn't want to be a puppet for either or side of the voice, like, and I was just like, if I have to say something, let me say it. And that meant that if I have to say something, that I needed to go slower, I needed to spend a lot of time in what I wanted to say. And that pace was very different. So I started kind of taking a back step, I guess, from very active journalism, and went into, doing some stuff commercially, some stuff on lifestyle, some stuff with development sectors. But my work kind of became a little bit more
Why?
like slow for me,
As a
let's just
slow.
say.
Can I ask your age?
Yeah, I'll forget it. So I'm 85 born. So that makes me 36 at the end of this year, towards the end of this year.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, what you like about photography?
What do I like about photography? Isn't it? I mean, I think what's interesting about photography is that it's never one thing. You know, it's a medium that's kind of always in transition. It's something that you can create and then look at it from many different perspectives. I think what I really enjoy the most is to be on my feet. Um, I've really been missing that in the last 1 year for sure.
What?
But because of the pandemic, I mean, a lot of travel was so restricted. You could only kind of be in Delhi
डर
and,
के
things
आगे
like
जीत है अंशिका, डर के आगे जीत है. Just go and shoot यार.
नहीं नहीं बट एक तो अपना डर है एक है जिसको मिल रहे हो उसकी भी तो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है ऐसे थोड़ी
I go
है
every day यार since 3 months. It's fine.
right 3 months is
So
still this year so
yeah.
for me what's good is that I need to be on my feet, yeah. I need to just be doing things and photography allows me to do that. Like when I'm on my feet it gives me ideas, it makes me question things. So I kind of really enjoy that. I think that's something that I enjoy the most. And there's a different kind of engagement that you get when I can't say that you're putting yourself in someone else's shoes because I don't think that that ever happens. You're still always looking at things from your own point of view. But I think what I'm enjoying now more than ever, like when I started photography, the thrill was I'm out with a camera, I'm out in a different location every day, I'm meeting new people. So at that time, I think that was the thrill.
For
Uh,
how long you were in Mumbai?
I was in Bombay for a year. I did my course at Sapphires and then I moved to Delhi where
How was it?
I joined Time Out.
How was Mumbai for you?
Oh, it was amazing. I had a very tough time coming back to Delhi because the pace of Bombay is so different. And then you come to Delhi and you're like, "Yahan kya ho raha hai?" Like it was just, it was a really big readjustment. But again, I think what really saved me at that point of time was being in timeout because it
You
was
were in
it was
time out?
about the city. Yeah, yeah. I joined
Wow,
as an intern and then was a
amazing.
photographer and then just kind of grew from there. But I think that really changed a lot because the minute I kind of joined Time Out, it was about being in the city every day and
You were
rediscovering
working
so
as what?
much. Sorry?
You were working as what in there?
Different things. I mean, I was in the photo team, but when I started, I was obviously an intern. Then I was a senior photographer, and then I was heading the Delhi team. So I've been in and out of Time Out. It's like a home space. There's
Now
some.
it's not there or what? Like time out?
No, yeah, it. I think it fizzled out when things started going online, and I don't think it could keep up
Time out
with
was
what
really good,
was
huh?
expected.
Time out was very good. They were
Yeah, it
doing
was
good work.
really fun. And it really made you fall in love with the city. Like suddenly there was so much that you had to discover. Like it was really amazing.
So you didn't work for better photography?
No, I
Lalwani,
did.
Lalwani's.
Mr. Lalwani might have something to say about that, but no, I didn't actually. I actually, when I joined photography, I started knowing all these things about photo magazines or who are the right photographers or who are the photographers in India or who are the classic photographers. All of that came to me much, much later. I never really even, I wasn't, to be fair, I wasn't even curious about it. I was just really happy to be with the camera and to kind of be out on the streets and be lost. So I was like, whoever shot whatever, matlab, मेरे को उससे क्या करना है, like I just want to shoot my own thing. So I never studied photography, so that there was never that came in too. We had a very small peek into very very classical traditional photographers in Sophia's. It was a small module, but never anything that kind of really engaged with the study of it, or the technicalities of it. So I just felt that there's so much that I want to try and experiment that I think I was just in that zone. I wasn't even looking at who are the photographers around. Paroma Mukherjee, who I think is Paris is here as well. She actually really helped me because she was the person.
Paromita Paromita
No,
Chatterjee.
Paroma. She's right here. She's the photo editor for Hindustan Times now.
Oh
She's
wow.
been there for a while, and so she actually really guided me a lot because she would be like, Anshika, there's this photo workshops used to happen on by I guess an organization called Foundry. So she told me about it, and that's the first workshop that I ever did, where I turned up with a camera and I was doing a session with Ami Vitale, and she said, "Okay, so we're gonna make a photo story," and I was like, "What do you mean? Aren't we just gonna go and shoot?" Like I was very very young at that time, and then Parry, in fact, even directed me to Anchor, which changed a lot for me within photography as well. So yeah, I mean, I think she's kind of helped a hell of a lot in my understanding of photography. By kind of just nudging me, why don't you look here? Why don't you see that? And that's been really nice. Yeah.
So what really inspires you in like life and photography? What really inspires you?
I mean, it's different things, different days. Uh, Everyone works differently, but I think for me, what's very important is that I need to be doing 20 things at the same time. I make sense of the world by being in chaos. So,
Multitasking.
you know, so when there's more things that are happening, I think my brain also begins to get activated, and then there's other questions that come. So I always do try and keep myself involved in different kinds of things, um, looking at different triggers and sensory stimulants around me at all points of time, and it's been interesting because like I think you're inspired by different things at different points of time in your life because at different ages or phases of your life you have different questions, you know so it's something that I have no control over. It's kind of like I follow where one is kind of taking me to, and then I just make sure that whatever comes I'm just questioning everything, and and just creating a little bit of chaos, and somehow within that uh, my mind and soul finds some kind of coordination and new stuff comes up.
So when you went back to Delhi, what you did?
I went to Time Out straight out almost after. I was in Delhi for a couple of months, and Time Out had just opened up in Delhi. It was in Bombay, pehle, like it was previously already in Bombay, and they were going to start their Delhi chapter. And I just went and I met the editor, Avtar Singh, who is a phenomenal editor and who really, really spoiled me because he was such a great editor that I said, after you, I don't think I can work with any other editor. And we were a very small team.
Team.
Um,
Small
that
team is the best team.
it's the best, because it was really like hanging out with a group of friends by the end of it. Um, it's become a weird kind of a family of its own, and it's quite nice because also you see each other every day, day in day out, and you understand each other very differently, and yeah, so that was really nice. So
So after time out, what happened?
after time out, I went to Tehelka. I was in Tehelka
Wow.
for yeah.
This is a,
There was a little few months in the middle when I was doing a lot of freelance work with in development sector and also with freelancing with news, but it was very erratic, and I actually ended up meeting
so you have met
this.
Tarun Tenchpal.
Yeah. Of course, I have. I mean, I was working in
Have you
Telka.
read his book? Have you read his book?
Which one? He's
Beautiful
written a
book.
few.
I read that book in 2-3 days, and I was like so intrigued and so like gripped with that book. This is the best book I've read by Tarun
Well,
Tenchpal.
he writes very. convincingly, I
He
would
is
say.
so amazing, so amazing, so amazing. Have you read that book? I don't remember the
I
name,
don't know.
but
You have to tell me the title of the book.
it's a love story and how
Oh,
things
no, I
change in their
haven't.
life.
No, I don't think I've read that. I haven't read
Oh,
a lot.
it's beautiful. Please read it.
Okay.
So gripping, so gripping. I can't tell you. It's so gritty and a lot of things.
Sounds good. Maybe I will pick you up on
2 days.
that.
It's a thick book, huh? It's a thick book, and I finished in 2 days because it's so. I can't,
Fully
accept it.
gripped.
Anyway, then
Some,
Telka for how long?
I was in Teherka for about a year and a half to like as part of their features. I was a features photographer with them, so I was doing long form stories for them. And and then there were certain issues that popped up at work where, and I think we spoke about that, even during the panel discussion for the Winterthur Museum that you and I were at, where I was talking about how like there was this weird dynamic where I think there was a little bit of a friction of like this young photographer coming into the team and going out for long stories and looking at a different format, and I think that didn't work very well with the then photo editor. And so it kind of became more of a desk job for me, and I really wasn't made for the desk. So I had a conversation with the editor and the assistant editor at that point of time, and I said I'd much rather do freelance work because also there was so much that was happening. In terms of like personal projects for me at that time, there was so much other stuff that I wanted to look at and explore with photography. And, we kind of came upon this equation where for next year I was doing work for them, but on a freelance basis.
You know the book I told you, Alchemy of Desire.
Yeah. I have heard about that book, but I haven't read
Oh
it.
my God!
But I'll try
Please
and
read it.
if it
Please buy it
interests.
and read. You will tell me that this is the best book I've read by
I
an Indian
most
author.
certainly.
He should get awarded for that.
Do you read a lot? Do you enjoy reading? No.
I have read Vikram Seth, Suitable Boy, thick book. I have read this book. I have read Murakami. I have read Anne Frank. I have read like very few books. I have read Sam Bango. I have read and few books, but good
Okay.
books I have read. I have
Good
read
books.
good
Yeah, okay. You've read the books that you've enjoyed, so that's a good thing.
selected books I have read. But now I left reading because it goes like no, I can't concentrate. I have so many thoughts coming.
That is very interesting because it's something that I think happens a lot where I feel like we're right now at a time where our focus points are so limited, like it's so easy to get distracted that it's become, uh, you know, I think
That
all our
book
reading
needs to
habits.
be very gripping to be there.
Yeah, but I feel like I feel really sad, because I think sometimes the most beautiful things are said in the most quiet ways. And, like I feel like it's really sad because we're looking at like 50 things. So now it's on the writer to like, to constantly be like throwing things at our face. So we pay attention. But
So
reading
you are
definitely.
an avid reader.
I used to be in the last year. I haven't had much time to read because during the pandemic, I mean, Offset kind of took into a whole new direction, and so I have been reading, but I've not been reading for the love of reading. I've been reading to kind of like do research or do other things, and that's a different journey. But yeah,
Now
but I really did enjoy reading a lot. When I was
I
a
will.
kid, in fact, there are these photographs, from birthday parties where I would actually carry my book to a birthday party and I'd just be in one corner. I just wanted to make sure everybody was around me and everyone was happy and doing things. And then I didn't read my book. I used to really enjoy reading, but yeah, reading habits have definitely been impacted in a not so great way.
So I'm into photo books right now. So I want
Tell
to
me.
ask you about your venture which you started. offset projects. Tell me how it started, what inspired you to do it, and this going so well, and when did it you started?
Sure, sure. So, I mean, Offset kind of came into being, I think, in 2018 is when we actually started. And I'd been working with many photographers, I'd been in conversation with many of them. And I've already told you about how I'd always fancied myself as someone who's going to work with a book. As a child, I thought it would be text. And uh, there were a few books that I had actually come across, which were photo books, that really changed what I thought was possible in bookmaking and what I thought photo books could do. So I think what that resulted in was like in 2018, I used to do a lot of commercial jobs in books as well, and I still do work with Roli Books, which is based out of Delhi. They're an amazing publishing house, and the founder and the owner of Roli, Mr. Pramod Kapoor, had got in touch with me and said, we've always worked on this project where you're shooting for us, but I want you to edit a book for us. And that was a book on Calcutta. And and for as a format, they used to use a lot of stock imagery as well, and they kind of wanted to see what I if I was to pick up that project as an
Photo
editor,
Book
what.
Festival Castle has joined.
Oh, hi! So nice to see you guys. So, so what that started off with was that actually, and I got into a conversation with Pramod, and I said that we have such amazing photographers here. Why should we go to an agency to kind of take images from there? What you'll end up getting if you visit, and we were visiting Calcutta, to kind of get family archives out and so much of that stuff. So the idea was that if we were going to be in Cal, why not use the perspectives that come from photographers who are in Calcutta, you know, and get them to speak their stories of how Cal is. And that became kind of, and they were extremely excited. Rolly was very excited to kind of, go in that direction. And we tried to actually even commission as many shoots as we could. We tried to work from, photography archives of other photographers who were in Calcutta. And I think that's the first offset project that kind of came
Wow.
up.
Wow.
Look at a city, and we divided the entire book into pre-Naxal movement, so pre-70s and then post-70s, and we came up with some very very beautiful archives of historical structures being built in Cal, and I think the idea was also to kind of focus away from just a cultural representation of Calcutta and actually get into like more deeper layers and conversations and how photographers were looking, who belong to the city were looking at it. And so that was the first project, and we had a really beautiful response for that. But one of the things that I realized is this was something, I had a photo book collection of my own that I'd been buying books over a period of time. And before Offset, I actually used to do a series of almost like art therapy workshops with a lot of students or children from different cities and different countries. And I had noticed that in these workshops, there's one where you can show images on a slideshow, you have a projector, but when you actually gave these kids photo books to look at, the joy and the kind of responses and reactions that they would come up with was really fascinating. And that had kind of triggered off this question saying, why are only photographers looking at photo books? Because clearly, when you take it out of that circle, um, people talk about a lot more interesting things. As photographers, we get very caught up in the photography or in the image or in the politics of that image. But when you actually take it outside, you realize, how people are connecting with those images. And that kind of really stayed with me, while I was doing these workshops. So it had started off an interesting spot where I started using photo books as a way to talk about different issues. So I'd pick up a book and on gender, let's say, and I'd take it into a school and I'd talk about what it means for children to understand their sexuality, you know. And the thing was that, I mean, the amazing thing about photo books is that it's such a personal connection, right? Like I could show you the same image and I could see the same photograph, but it would be a completely different relationship that I would have with that image as opposed to you, because we come from our own histories. And I think that was really important for me, you know, that the afterlife of the photograph after it's been made, that continues to expand, because if the photograph only begins to mean one thing, for me that's the death of the image, you know. So for me that was really important, that it has to be a starting point. Like the role of the photograph, personally speaking, is that it has to start a thought process, start a conversation. And and you know, I mean, even these workshops that we did with students, it was not to make them photographers, you know. It was like, I'll tell you this really small incident that happened. I was doing this workshop with a basti in Okhla, no, sorry, in Noida. And, you know, the kids were supposed to go back home and photograph just things that they found interesting at home, and then we discuss it the next day. And there was this one photograph that this child had taken of his mom. And, you know, she was just watching TV. So she's kind of just like lying down like that, and she has this remote, you know, like how we all sit at some point in time. And it became this really weird thing because this girl had taken this photograph from kind of far back. So it was the whole frame, I guess, the whole wall was there and the whole room was there. And because her mom was so tiny, it almost felt like she was holding a cigarette in her hand. And suddenly, like in the whole classroom, everybody was really quiet because they were like, shit, this one's mom smokes, you know? And it, but it was
But it's so
such an amazing way to start a conversation, because suddenly I was like, okay, guys, so what is wrong with smoking? You know, like let's talk about that. And and what was interesting was, and I mean, this is where conditioning plays such a big role, right? Because for everybody, the thing that was wrong was that the mother was smoking, right? It was not that smoking was unhealthy, it was that the mother was smoking. And so I was like, but so if her father was smoking, you'll be okay. And so they were like, but Papa to karte hain, you know?
हाँ
And I said,
मदर
you
नहीं
know,
कर
so,
सकती.
yeah, exactly. So it started off, and you know, obviously this poor kid was just like, but that's a remote control, you know, like it's not even a cigarette. So, but that kind of started off this whole conversation about like, how do we create these judgments and ideas of who can do what, you know. And I think for me that is important. That is what photography can do, you know. So keeping that in mind, we actually, sorry, I keep getting distracted now,
No
coming
no
back
no
to
no no.
what
It's
happened
good.
with
Good.
offset.
Good.
You know.
Carry on.
So I mean, when offset started, for me that is something that I wanted to kind of, I wanted to create these places where these conversations could happen a lot more. And owing to that, I think what started was a whole series of like pop-up libraries that we started doing at schools, universities, photo schools as well. And it was really fun. I mean, I love to talk, so for me that was great. And you know, and the minute you started getting into that, you realize that none of these things kind of stay in isolation. So if you're talking about people responding to images, you have to make images accessible to them. You have to make ways of reading images accessible to them. In order to do that, you have to also make sure that the photographers who require support to make these books have access points to that support. And so it's actually been a very organic development in many ways at Offset, where we started with the idea of having conversations by looking at photography, and also to take photography outside of photographers. And then, you know, so then we started doing workshops with uh, book making. So they were editors that we've had, they're paper makers that we've had, they're, you know, designers that we've had who've done workshops with photographers for how to effectively translate their ideas into the printed format. And at the same time, we've also done like well, now it was 2019. But in 2019, we did this workshop in Jaipur, uh, where we actually asked people to respond by making a book of their own, but respond to newspapers and what newspapers were saying about the CA and NRC reporting. So that's all visuals. It's all visuals that we're consuming with at a very subconscious level. But if we actually get down to just taking a moment to pause and looking at how there is that repetition of certain visuals, it creates I think that reflection is really important to understand that every entity has its agendas. And then you choose to kind of go in or, participate or not. So we've done workshops on both ends. And then, with the pandemic last year, I was in conversation with a few photo book authors who self-published, and they were talking about how they have all these books, and they don't know how they'll be accessible because everything's sort of shut down. And I think that's the first time I realized that in India we didn't have anybody who was working with independently produced photo books. And so I said, okay, this is what is, I mean, essentially, the movement in photography has directed what the needs of the time have been. And we've tried to kind of respond and react to that. And so we had the bookshop that started last year. And of course, the Guftagu talk started last year, which I was very, very overwhelmed to know that people were responding to. And then this year we've come out with our first publication. So it's been a long, quick journey. Actually, not a long journey, but like I said, I need to do 50 things together to make sense of every one of them. So it works.
So, what was the most enriching experience for you in this time during this phase of 2018 to 2020? Now it's 21.
I think what's been interesting is actually to start talking to so many photographers about how they see photography as their expression, and how they're kind of really working around it, because I feel that everyone is coming from such unique perspectives, and that's been really enriching for me. It's been like a crash course in understanding so much that maybe an institute would not have offered me, only because I don't think I work very well with institute formats. So I have a
What
different way of learning. So this learning makes more sense to me than the other way around.
what have you learned?
What have I learned? Oh God, if I could start telling you that, we would have a
No, no,
three-day
please.
Insta
We
live.
want to know. What have you learned?
I think one of the most important things that I've learned is that nothing can exist in absolutes. You know, everything has layers, and in retrospect, will mean something else to us. Every moment when you look back at it, will have a different important moment in your life. And I think, I mean, there's many ways to look at this. When we say, what have we learned about the medium? Um, I think it's given me a lot more confidence to say that it doesn't matter if someone does not like my image, or if I'm not following a particular format of creating images, because I'm making this image for myself.
I can relate to
You know,
that.
you can relate to that, right? And so I think that was really important, because I mean, you're also living in a time where there's so much pressure to create certain kinds of work, or certain kinds of subjects, or certain kinds of issues, and uh, I mean, to know that it's okay. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in this being my language. And so if it's slower, if it's softer, if it doesn't have 500 people falling, crazily in love with it, that's okay. It doesn't matter. I think that has been really, really freeing in many ways, because then that has let me do experiments with photography that I would not have done.
Hmm.
It's made me do um, it's made me use photography as sculpture. It's made me use photography as installation. It's made me think of offset. Like there's no formula for anything, and the only formula that you create is that you do not remain the same at any point of time.
There's a question for you. So, what do you
Mm-hmm.
believe in, Anshika? When you are going through these layers, whether professional or personal, would you would like to just live through a battle or to create a different?
I think
Can
if
you,
you remain honest with why you're doing something, sorry, let me just, I don't know who I'm speaking with.
this is
Ankur, is it?
Ankur.
Yeah, Ankur. So, what do you believe when you're going through these layers, whether professional or personal? You'd like to just live it through a battle it to create a difference. I think even if you're not thinking about creating a difference, sometimes you don't know about it. I mean, like when I started the Guftagu program, right? Like it was because I was really missing talking to my friends, and a lot of these friends were photographers. But so I wasn't really thinking about making a difference. But then towards like after a few months, people started writing and saying that there were students who were studying photography and universities had closed down. So for them, these conversations had a different relevance. And then there was someone else who was a curator who was looking at suddenly all these conversations come up and thinking that, hey, I never realized this is a whole different scene in South Asia as far as photography is concerned. So I think what's really important is that you do what you want to do and you do it with the right intentions of not hurting anybody else or not being vengeful on anybody else. And the world will connect to it in very different ways, and that we have no control over. What I am going through is a challenge to be more honest with myself. That is my, that
Why it
is
is a
my
challenge?
mantra, because it's very easy to delude yourself. We live in a world where it's very, very easy to convince yourself that you don't need to do that, or this might not be so great. And so every day to tell yourself and to push yourself to be honest with yourself about why you're creating the work that you are creating. uh, for me, I think that is a challenge, that can be very often a challenge.
There's
So
one more
for me,
question.
that's what's most important for me, that you have to be really honest to know why you're doing what you're doing. And I mean, when Ankur, you mentioned if I want to battle or create a difference, I think I don't think I go with the intention of battle. For me, like when there is something that's stopping me, I take it like a challenge, because for me, it's like, okay, if this is the challenge in front of me, uh, how do I create it a situation that I can grow from? And that's how I've taken it up until now.
There's one
I
more
think
question.
someone here said
There's one more
you.
question.
Sure.
SR Sunny Hill. Ma'am, I have a question. Is it necessary to join a photography school to become a professional photographer?
This is it's a question that I've also asked myself many, many times. I still do, because I've not studied photography professionally. Um, I studied literature and I was always interested in literature. But I think it's something that, I mean, I don't think there's an either or for it. You have to know yourself, um, because different people have different personalities. I don't thrive very well in classroom setups. It's not my personality, because for me, I have to do something to understand it. You know, so for me, the classroom setup where you kind of explain something, it doesn't register till I've done it myself. You know,
Yeah,
and
but you will do it, right? When you're being told.
yeah, I mean, so the thing is that the misconception is that if you're not going to a photography school, that then when you're doing your self training, it can be easy. I think it's a lot more difficult, because you have to create a whole bunch of
Yeah,
disciplines for yourself. You have to constantly push yourself, and you might not have someone to help you or guide you or take you
I have to
through.
tell you something.
Sure.
At the age of 35, I joined Udan School of Photography, and
Right.
that's
How was
the
that?
turning point of my life. It changed my life completely. I got a good portfolio because of Udan. I grew as a photographer. I am what I am because of Udan. So I feel if you get a chance to study in a school, you must go ahead because it's
Right.
very challenging to learn on your own.
It is. It's a pretty big challenge, because you're also like, I mean, that's the thing, right? That's where to say that you're making something that's yours, you have to first understand what medium you're dealing with, you know. So I did not study photography from any school or institute, uh, but that's because being the person that I am, I needed a different kind of journey. You know, I needed to do things on my own to make errors. And I mean, like I said, I was talking before, I'm someone who can make sense out of things only when I'm in the midst of chaos. So it's also a personality. You have to know what is best suited for you. I think there's also another question of whether, you know, because you mentioned professional photographer. So if there are technicalities that you do need to understand, I think a school is immensely helpful. You know, if I
Well,
had a school where I could understand how studio setups work, or you know, things like that. I think those are very. It's very helpful to have that when not just in terms of like when you have a mentor or access to material, access to equipment, um, also access to a community of friends who get your madness for sitting in a studio and trying out shit for like really, really long. You know, I was really lucky. I had a whole bunch of friends that I would pick up in the morning and like I'd say 5:30, be ready, we are going for a 4 hour walk, you know, and they'd say, Chal, theek hai, let's go, you know. Um, and you know, but eventually they also kind of got tired of it. And then I had to do it on my own. But even with, you know, like working with lights, so I actually had to buy, like I had to rent out, I bought my own 2 light setup and then like shut myself in for a month and, you know, taught myself
do
lighting.
you watch
Uh,
YouTube?
I'm very, I'm on and off with it. Like I watch it to get the fundamentals and then I
I never
keep
watch.
improving my own. Yeah, but you know, you had the school, so I think that's really helpful. Like that's what I'm saying. So these kind of things, if you need technical knowledge, if you need knowledge that actually is requires, you know, working with different kinds of cameras, let's just say, you know, and understanding what the language of a large format is as opposed to like the language of a 35 mm. You know, like I'm talking really basic stuff right now, but these things really do make a difference in how you also make certain decisions about photography. So I think it's also important to know what you might want. Like for me, I think I might not be as averse to going to a school now in my life, but I would not go to photography school. You know, I might want to go to like something that's an art school that looks at sculpture, that looks at, you know, because I know now what my questions are for the medium, you know. And I mean, for me, I'm actually interested to see can design and philosophy and aesthetics kind of work in a different way, and that maybe is where I need the school now. So, so I think it's very important to know what you want from the school.
So you have like a long journey. What has changed you in this long journey? What has really changed in yourself? What change you see in yourself
What changed me seeing myself? Can you explain that a little bit more?
as a person, as a as in life? What change you see
I think there's, I
in
mean, there's so much, you know, there's, you grow with every single
like
instance. And
something profound which has changed in you?
I mean, I think in many ways, let's say that, and this has nothing to do with photography really. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just,
general. I'm
you
asking
know,
general.
I'm gonna move. I don't think I'm talking much about photography. So if you guys have any questions, it's always good for
It's
you to
not about
ask.
photography. It's about
Okay,
life
great.
journey.
So I mean, I think what at every point of time, it's important to kind of look back and question what are the things that you were taking for granted in today's world. Um, I was very, very lucky that in Bombay, where I studied, you know, mass communication, I had an amazing set of instructors. We had P. Sainath who taught us, we had Jerry Pinto who taught us, we had Smriti Kopikar, you know. And for me, our engagement with, you know, where you stand in relation to the world that you occupy is very important. You know, that's kind of been always very, very important. And also it's been very important to constantly give without an expectation of getting something
Yeah.
back. You know, and it's been really, I think these questions come up more and more today because of the kind of world that we're living in, because of the kind of restrictions that we are putting either on ourselves or that are being put on us. And it's been a time to actually really sit down and question and really understand who you are and what is it that you believe in. You know, and these questions have had massive impacts in the work that I've chosen to do, or who I've chosen to be. I think in many ways, like I was telling you, about when I was working with Tehelka, and there was, I mean, of course, there were many, stories that we did while we were traveling, and one of the things that really stays in my mind is that I was doing this story where we went undercover to Orissa, and we were kind of talking about um, certain villages in Orissa that were going through massive brutalities by the state. And there was a particular time when I went where there was something called Operation Green Hunt that had started, where the state had kind of brought in CRPF and was actually pretty much abducting, men from tribal villages all across Orissa. And I mean, and so we'd gone to kind of do this story to talk about these villages where, the only people that were holding fort were the women of that village. And I think, it was a very well intentioned piece. You also got to see so much of the world that you took for granted. But I think one of the things that really stayed with me was that uh, the reporter I was with, the story became so important to him that he had already kind of decided what the story was. And so, even in the way that when he would interview someone, it was almost to kind of confirm his, pre assumed idea, And that's why when I said that for me, it was really important to not fall into anyone's agendas came into play, where I said, this is also another kind of a game, you know. I don't think of it as such because I'm aligned to that side. But I think a lot of actually looking at how journalism happened made me realize that there is such a rush to report that people forget to listen. And uh, and I think that has really shifted everything that I've done in many ways with photography.
I feel
You know,
listening is very, very important, and it's so sad that
exactly.
people don't listen. People
No,
really talk
absolutely.
about
And also listening with no,
no judgment.
yeah, no judgment, but also no desire for an outcome. You know, I think that is what's very important. And I mean, that's what I was trying to do even within Guftagu, where I said, okay, we'll have the base foundation that you're a photographer, but then let's talk about like what are the things that have got you into this. So for me, that act of listening, you know, the realization that actually for so much that goes out into the news, very little comes out of listening. You know, you also only listen to the people when the time is conducive enough to listen to them. And so, not to say that that should not happen. I mean, there's so many other factors that come into play when that happens. But I just realized that that was not something that I could make peace with. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't want to be kind of sitting with someone only because it was the right time to do that. I
Right.
wanted to be sitting with that person and then maybe talk for 5 years if I had to make, an understanding of what a project needs to be, and that should be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that act of listening was very, very important. It even even the emergence of Offset and the Guftagu series came up at a time where I felt that I really wanted to know what other practitioners coming from their own backgrounds, coming from their own baggage, wanted to say, and maybe I needed to take a back seat because I was someone who was coming from such a place of privilege. And, so this was not the time for me to speak up. This was the time for many others to speak up. And so, so different ideas and different concepts have emerged from that, I'd say.
There are two questions for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Ankur has asked again, Shweta, how do you correlate or your photography with Anshika and Anshika? Same for you.
Shweta, do you want to go for that?
I don't know what to say. Like,
I don't think they have to correlate. I think that's
yeah,
the amazing thing about photography. You know, that
both are very
it's just
different
about
specialities
talking.
and
Yeah.
very different work.
I think, yeah, we're doing, and the more kinds of languages that you have, the more diversity of perspectives that you can bring in. That's always great. So
But
I think,
but
I
I
mean,
want
for
to
me,
tell everyone. I want to tell everyone we are collaborating with for some project.
yes, we have lots of plans plotting. So
So
wait and
you
watch.
have to wait and watch. Yeah, you have to wait and watch for 2021 and 2022.
Absolutely.
We are so looking
I think
forward to it.
Ankur has another question also.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry,
You read.
just
You read. The,
one sec. Don't you think
sure.
photographers have a responsibility to play
Hello,
towards
sir.
society, nature, science, beliefs? Or is it just a mode of expression of individual thoughts or judgment unbiased? Hmm, I don't think I don't think anyone has a mandatory responsibility. It's great if they do, but what they want to do with what they want to say should be their own choice. That's where I come from. Uh, Having said that, uh, I personally feel that if you are someone who is engaging with the kind of spaces that documentary photography can offer, um, you are by default going to be in a place where you're listening to so many perspectives. And if you remain honest, I mean, what I would say is mandatory is not that you have to talk about climate or life sciences or any of these other things, but I think what you have to be really particular about is being ethical to the subject that you've chosen to follow. Whether it's an idea, whether it's an individual, whether it's a community, the ethics of how you choose to engage with them, that's a non negotiable, right? But do you have to? Does every photographer? I think also these, as much as it is important to have these conversations, uh, if you're forcing these conversations out of people who might not want to say them, um, you might just get the same thing over and over again, right? So what's the point of just adding noise? If it's someone who's actually impacted or affected by something and then they want to talk about it, then I'm interested, right? And that will come through because ethically, or you'll be honest to your work, and I think that will just translate in itself by default. Having said that, I think it's also really important to have fun, you know. Uh, it's important to look at a photograph and just be able to laugh. It's important to look at something and just feel nice. I think that we've become so embroiled and so caught up with like one aspect, which is the journalistic responsibility of photography. Well, there you go.
I
That
bought this.
one
I
needs to
received
have
this
fun
today.
with it.
I received this today. It's the most beautiful book I have got, and you will see India in a different way. This is 1980s. 1980s like
80s, right? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so I just feel like I also miss, and I think this is something that actually Paroma made me think about, where she was saying that she misses looking at photographs that make her laugh, you know, and it's so important to do that. So yeah, I don't think every work should be saying the same thing. That would be if we all just created works being very, very aware of forcing ourselves to be politically correct or forcing ourselves to be environmentally, addressing these issues. We are also self-censoring, you know. The only point I think at which I draw a line is the ethics of how you choose to engage with the subject that you are photographing. That for me is a complete non-negotiable. You can't mess with that. And you're free to create the work that you want, but you should be open to also receiving criticism for it if everybody does not agree with it. Yes.
one more question has come.
Yes.
Last question, Anshika.
So,
Based on your answer, if you're requested to create a story series of photography and theme being this silence is louder than noise for new normal, and world beyond.
Is there something that I'm making? Are you asking me what I would shoot
Yeah,
if I
yeah,
was asked to shoot
right.
silence?
Yeah.
I think this new normal, I mean, for me, it's too soon to know what this new is. You know, uh, we've not really understood what it means. It for us right now, it just means that we haven't gone out for a year, right? But to actually tell you what the new normal is, I think we need a few more years. We need to see how this has impacted the psychology of uh, children who, you know, didn't end up
Team
going
silence is louder
for a
than
year.
noise.
Silence is louder than noise. So you ask me how I would shoot for silence is louder than noise?
It is
I
it
might
is
need to
noise.
look
It is louder than noise. Can you, yeah, it's louder than noise.
yeah.
Silence. The most profound thing.
That is, I mean, so the thing is, I at this stage, I honestly I don't even know. Like I said, I'm a very slow person. So during the pandemic, I had done this little story where at night, because suddenly everything was pin drop silent at night. And I think at night is when it really hit you because you could just hear silence around you in a very different way. And I had done this work at that time, which was like a small video work, which was just so. I mean, where I live in Delhi, we during close to monsoons, we have crazy number of peacocks that come in. In fact, there's a peacock that comes right to the terrace, to the house that I am in. And so at nights, you could just hear them kind of take over the city, you know. And for me, that was such a beautiful sound, you know. And so I was working around like that idea of when it's silent and you could only hear the sound of the peacock and like the larking of uh, the neighborhood guard, who walks at night, and how those two sounds were kind of making a different world for us. So, maybe that is also silence is louder than noise or not. I don't know. I mean, I'm very bad at creating thematic stuff because, like I said, I don't think I can contain within these absolute ideas. But, uh, this is what I'm thinking, and it's for you to see if it makes sense as silence or not.
Do you have some time?
Oh, uh, just a tiny bit.
So, what is your plan for this year?
What is my plan for this year? Well, we've just come up with, like I said, we did the Guftagoo book, which is our first publication as Offset, and the first run of this was a run that was made just for distribution to schools and universities for free. So
Where
we've
can we
just
buy?
got those.
We can buy.
Right now, you can't buy it because the first run was only for schools and universities. But
Your friend
and,
is here. Your Pramila Bari's photos is here.
oh hi, Prabla. And so I think what we're now working on, because we've had such an immense response to the zines, that we're actually developing an offset run, which should be out in another couple of months, and that will be available for sale. So once that is out, just we'll be updating it on our offset page, which is Offset Projects on Instagram. We're not on
Please
Facebook.
follow Anshika. Please follow Offset. Don't miss out.
But yeah, so we'll have an offset run of that, and that's something I'm really looking forward to. And we're also working on a couple of programs and a possible grant for this year for younger photographers as well. Everything will be up.
Only young, not old.
Very, very young. Wait and watch. you know. So yeah, I mean, these are some of the projects we're working on. Finally, we're going to get to move around. So I'll get back to my own projects. I've been working on a book for a very long time that I've
Your
been
own book.
wanting. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So I've been
When
wanting
is
to
it
print
coming?
that for a while. It's called The Wall, and it's actually about our engagement with nature in many ways. So I'm kind of very excited about that. And there's a couple of other projects that I'm doing in Punjab that I'm hoping will finally get started.
It
I
will. It
couldn't
will.
get up until now because some of the people that I'm meeting over there are very, very old. So we could not, I just could not go and meet them in a time like right now. And hopefully that then takes off. And we're prepping for the next round of Guftagu, which will start in the second half of the year. And yeah, lots
Lot
of
of
excitement.
plans. Lot of plans. You're like very busy, 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 busy.
Yeah, it's good fun though to keep it like that. Just keep doing stuff.
I'm coming to Delhi, and I want to meet you in April.
Done. Yes, we have a lot to talk about as well, right?
We can have full day talking.
Sounds good.
There's so
But
much to talk.
thanks so much for this. This is great fun.
I hope you enjoyed. Like
I did. I mean,
I could have
I
gone
was
and on.
very happy. I hope people who join in, made
I
made
I
sense
could
of it.
have gone on and on.
Thank you.
But you don't have
Thanks,
time.
Sigrid. It is
Secret,
Sigrid.
you should follow Secret. She's a great photo book maker.
Yes, I
She
have
makes her
heard.
own books. She makes her own books, and very creatively, and she's very
I
inspiring.
shall.
Please
You
see
might have
her.
a talker on your Instagram page, Sigrid.
Please see session with her, which I have taken. It's very
Uh-huh.
interesting. Yeah.
Okay, done.
So it was so nice, Anshika. Thank you so much again for
No,
coming,
thanks so much, Shweta. This
inspiring
is
us.
great.
So much to learn from you, and all the best
We
for
have
your
so much to learn from each other. I think that's the amazing thing about it.
best wishes for your plans and your
Thank you.
ventures.
Thanks
Best
so
wishes.
much. See you
Take
guys.
good
Take
care.
care.
Enjoy.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye.